You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Welcome to the Michael Rivero What Really Happened radio program.
Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, February 25th, 2021. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. And we have a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. And we're going to do a little bit of news, and then we're going to have some phone calls coming on in. And when we get to the phone calls, we're going to have a few changes to the rules to try and get that circus or asylum under control. So we'll be talking about that when we get to the end of the news here. Meanwhile, happy Purim to those of you who celebrate that holiday, which is today until sunset tomorrow. And so happy Purim again to those of our listeners who follow that. Getting into the news here, down in Texas, those poor Texans, and I know I talk about them a lot, but I really do feel bad for what they have been through, between green energy limits and all the other errors in judgment that led to this power disaster down there. And we are finding out now that electric companies are still price gouging Texas residents despite the blackouts. And there was some talk of finding some way to kind of relieve the Texas utility customers of some of these sky-high bills that were coming on in. And apparently that is not happening right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show. Texas Power Grid, according to the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, their power grid was just minutes from collapse during Winter Storm Uri last week. And I got to tell you right now, I think the Electric Reliability Council of Texas needs to seriously think about changing their name, because last week basically showed they're not very reliable at all. And, they had sub-freezing temperatures and 4.3 million Texans without electricity, and it was just an ugly, ugly situation. Scores that in this age of crumbling infrastructure and government nincompoopry, that you should be a prepper to an extent. Emergency food, emergency power, sources of heat, and so forth and so on, because our infrastructure isn't reliable anymore. We're sinking into third world status. Texas, California's rolling blackouts. It's just not there. And it's one of the reasons why I think this push for electric cars is a little premature, because as much as I like the idea of an electric car, this country does not have the generating capacity to support a wide population driving electric vehicles. That is just the reality. Turning to domestic politics now. Article coming on out of revolver.news. They're talking about Biden's rule by authoritarian decree. And we have commented before that he is just, Biden is his fraudulency is governing by executive order. He's signed a huge number of these directives. He's tripled the number of executive orders his predecessors had at the same point in their presidencies. And one of the worst executive orders is Biden's reckless rollback of a number of common sense immigration reforms enacted under the prudent path established under Donald Trump. So he's out there acting like an autocrat, which is generally what you tend to get when you have dishonest elections and can't really choose who is ruling the country. Another article, this one coming on out from uns.com, is basically saying that as far as our foreign policy is concerned, it is hard to see any difference between, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, because Biden has been a major disappointment for those who hoped that he would alter course regarding America's pathological involvement in all of these overseas conflicts. And instead, it seems like the old adage is true: presidents may come and presidents may go, but the war machine goes on forever. Interestingly enough, we are now getting word that President Biden may not have a State of the Union address. This is a story coming on out of Blacklisted News. And they're pointing out that following his predecessors, Joe Biden should have had his first State of the Union address by now. The corporate media is trying to say, well, maybe next week, maybe, we don't really know. But some presidents really didn't follow the schedule. Jimmy Carter in 1977 was very late. In 1981, he just sent a written declaration to Congress to be entered into the record. Story coming on out from Blabber.buzz, the Capitol breach narrative, to nobody's surprise, has been hijacked by politicians. Now, members of Congress were evacuated on January 6th because of the pipe bomb discovered outside the Republican National Committee headquarters, not the breach of the Capitol. This is coming from a former police official who announced earlier this week. Now, the Capitol Police discovered the bomb at 12:45 before the violence began at the Capitol. And shortly afterwards, authorities found another such device at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. So it's all propaganda. Story coming on out of wounds.com again. The New York Times is actually advising you not to think. Thinking is dangerous to the national security. They're saying that thinking requires using your unreliable brain and will lead you into conspiracy theories and dangerous questioning. Just believe whatever the corporate media tells you, and you will have an officially approved source of information. And of course, the New York Slimes and the corporate media as a whole regard their own propaganda as the truth. And a good example, of course, was Capitol Hill policeman Brian Sicknick, who was reported as beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. That turned out to be another lie. He was never attacked with a fire extinguisher. He died the following day. According to his family, he died of a stroke. That wasn't good enough for the New York Slimes. Remember, if it bleeds, it leads. If it thinks, it stinks. A House Homeland Security Committee member today sent Secretary of State Anthony Blinken a letter calling for the immediate designation of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers as international terrorist groups. The letter was written by Josh Gottheimer, a Jewish congressman from New Jersey, and in the request, he cites a Jewish activist group, the Anti-Defamation League, along with the Southern Poverty Law Center, as main authorities for characterizing Proud Boys as a white supremacist group looking to engage in political violence domestically and globally. Funny how they never mentioned the JDL anymore, since they were designated a terrorist group. Obama has basically come on out and said that he considered reparations for Black Americans back during his term in office. He says they're perfectly justified, but he said because of the white resistance, white supremacy, he was unable to get it done. So he's basically out there supporting this idea of reparations. Meanwhile, over at St. Joseph University, a professor got suspended for a tweet that opposed reparations for slavery that, after all, ended 156 years ago. And if the freed slaves were still alive, that would be one thing. If the slave owners were still alive, well, stick them with the bill. But 156 years, I'm sorry, it's just another excuse to take money away from one group and give it to another in order to secure more and more votes. And as I've mentioned before, what about those of us white people whose ancestors were abolitionists? Do we get a discount of some kind? is what I would like to know. And there is injustice throughout history. We know how that does. I mean, the Inquisition literally tortured my ancestors into renouncing Judaism and embracing Catholicism. So does the Catholic Church owe me reparations because I did not grow up as a rich Hollywood Jew? Just something to think about out there. Meanwhile, Trump's tax returns are now in the hands of the Manhattan District Attorney following the Supreme Court's rejection of Trump's last-ditch effort to keep the documents shielded. And they don't just want him out of politics. They want him so buried, he's never going to come back. And his already talking about a retry at the White House in 2024 is only going to anger his opponents all that much more. They're just going to be inflamed. Up there in New York, Governor Cuomo seems to be in a lot of trouble, and I'm not talking about his coronavirus lockdown. He has now been accused of harassing a woman in his office and having an affair with a married woman for months as well. I don't know what it is about politicians. They can't keep their flies zipped. But meanwhile, while this is being reported in a lot of the foreign press, it's still being covered up by ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC. They're not talking about it at all. It is as verboten as Hunter Biden's laptop. Over in New York City, 9 protesters were arrested during a demonstration over the decision not to charge any police officers over the death of Daniel Prude, who was arrested during a naked psychiatric breakdown. He had the spit hood placed over his head and suffocated from that. And nobody is being charged. There's being a protest on that one. And everybody is getting ready for the upcoming trial for George Floyd. That one's going to be kicking up a lot of angst as well. Now, President Biden, his fraudulency, yesterday formally revoked a series of presidential orders and memorandums signed by Donald Trump, including one that sought to cut funding from several cities he deemed anarchist havens, and another mandating that federal buildings should be designed in a classical aesthetic. Now, I really don't care about the federal buildings and their design aesthetic. I really don't care about that. But the fact of the matter is that these cities, New York City, Portland, Seattle, basically just stood down while the Black Lives Matter protests ran roughshod over the law-abiding citizens there. Turning to the topic of vote fraud, which is still very much in people's minds, there's an article over at the Gateway Pundit, and it's talking about 2 Pennsylvania poll watchers, Leah Hoops and Gregory Stenstrom. They were GOP poll watchers in Chester, Pennsylvania during last November's election. And they basically went public about election fraud and election irregularities. The far left officials running the elections forced the GOP poll watchers into a small pen where they could not witness the counting of ballots. This was a common tactic used in all the swing states by far-left officials during the 2020 election. GOP poll watchers were abused and prevented from doing their job, and this resulted in massive chain of custody issues across the United States and always hampering the Republican poll watchers, never the other way around. This is one tactic the Democrats used to cheat and steal the election. Now, these poll watchers went public. Leah Hoops told her story to Rob Schmidt on Newsmax, after which special agents from the state attorney general's office showed up at the door to harass them. And apparently now they are being sued. So the powers that be, the powers that stole your country, are really trying to find ways to crack down on and just scare people away from talking about the very obvious and massive election fraud that took place last November. Up in New Hampshire, their Attorney General's office is trying to take custody of the Wyndham voting machines for a full audit. We'll see what happens up there as well. Down in Georgia, their Senate just passed a bill requiring ID for absentee voting. It's a small step, a necessary one. Every state needs to do exactly the same thing. There should be no voting without an ID. You need an ID to drive a car. You need an ID to buy alcohol. You need an ID to buy cigarettes. You need an ID to open a bank account. Why shouldn't you need an ID to vote? It just makes perfect sense here. But for some reason, the Democrats are championing this idea that requiring ID to vote is somehow racist. Because if you're against illegal immigrants voting, then you must be racist. No, it's not racist. Illegal is not a race. You just got to keep that in mind. Blaze TV host Steven Crowder had his Twitter account restricted after posting about a video investigative piece claiming numerous voter addresses in the 2020 presidential election were faked. And basically said dozens of voter names, addresses, and pictures proving they don't exist. And he says he's tired of this stuff. Mass voter fraud is real, and I can prove it. Twitter restricted the tweet, did not allow anyone to like, retweet, or respond to it, quote, due to a risk of violence, end quote. Now, Steve Crowder is out there basically challenging Twitter to prove his findings were wrong. But of course, Twitter's position is it isn't what you found. It's we're concerned it would lead to violence. And I agree that's a real concern. If the American people really got it through their heads that this last election was stolen from them, yeah, they would get very, very angry, especially looking at the direction his fraudulency is taking this country right now. All right, let's talk about coronavirus. President Biden, his fraudulency, in a Twitter post, says the experimental coronavirus vaccines are perfectly safe. But if you actually read the fact sheets on the vaccines, they say something very different. And the fact sheets for both recipients and caregivers regarding the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna experimental vaccines available at the CDC, you find a very different representation. We had the CDC come out just the other day and say, well, of course, we're expecting there to be thousands of deaths from the vaccine, but it's going to be fewer than the deaths from the coronavirus, which was the same promise they made back in 1976 during that mandated swine flu vaccine. And I got to tell you, with the number of deaths and adverse reactions being reported, we may be heading into a repeat of 1976, where more people are dying from the vaccine than from the actual coronavirus, given that the numbers of dead of coronavirus appear to be inflated for political gain. Okay. Biden has issued a proclamation about the China coronavirus. They're back to trying to lay that on the Chinese here, and basically flat out lies in his first few sentences, then orders all the federal flags at half staff based on those lies. And you probably noticed the flags are at half staff for those supposed 500,000 victims of the COVID-19 pandemic. And by the way, had there been a seasonal flu this year, just as many people would have died from it. If you look at the numbers, I think what's going around is the seasonal flu, and they just rebranded it as COVID-19 to hype the fear, get you to socially distance, not talk to each other, wear the face masks. Story coming on out from Global Research, talking about how Big Pharma, is putting their patents ahead of patients. And as a result, the doctors that are doing that are going to further erode trust in experts. Well, Actually, the experts are eroding the trust in experts by coming out with constantly changing, often contradictory declarations and proclamations about what the heck is really going on, whether it's about COVID-19 or human-caused global warming. We got to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network needs your help to continue its work of informing the American people so that they can make good choices. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, it does not appear that there's going to be any kind of a rollback or cut back on the very high electric bills that are going to be coming due from this recent freeze here. And so right now it is very critical that you support Republic Broadcasting Network because we use a fair amount of electricity to do what we are doing here. Once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And if you mail in a donation of $100 or more, include your t-shirt size and a return address, and you'll get one of these spiffy RBN official t-shirts and the associated bragging rights to go with it. And don't forget, the Frontside Firearms promotion is still ongoing. And again, you can get all of this contact information at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. All right, we are talking about COVID-19, and there's an interesting article from Natural News talking about how this rushed to market COVID spike protein vaccine means an unpredictable, genetically engineered and mutated virus fragment is being injected into your blood. Pardon me, this vector approach tricks your cells like a Trojan horse to let the recombinant DNA inside where permanent changes to your DNA is done, and it can never, ever be reversed. And so people really ought to be very concerned about that. I certainly am myself. Another article along the same lines. This one is coming from Global Research. And they're talking about the bits about the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine that are not being talked about. And the issue is right now, we are all being used as guinea pigs, human guinea pigs in this experiment, because that's exactly what it is. This mRNA vaccine has never before been tried on human beings. It's not approved. It's been distributed under an emergency authorization. Bill Gates is actively financing and promoting these new untested vaccines. And we're being convinced they're going to keep us safe from a ghastly death from COVID-19, which really has a very, very low fatality rate. And eventually, if we all get vaccinated, will allow us to resume somewhat normal lives. And you know, a lot of money being made with this, whether it's the vaccine companies or the mask companies, and it's an ugly, ugly situation. Okay, story out of Global Research again, raising the possibility that mandatory mRNA vaccination and PCR testing might actually be illegal up in Canada. And so they're going through the laws in Canada, and probably need to look at the laws in other countries, basically saying that no, unapproved drugs cannot be forced on you. That is also the law here in the United States. It's actually written into the Nuremberg Code that medical treatment cannot be administered without informed consent. And it's hard to see that we're being fully informed about these mRNA vaccines because it's still in the experimental stage and they don't know. Another story out of UNS.com saying that equity is just a nice way of saying the white people will be last. And in Virginia, Black and Hispanic seniors are getting prioritized for the vaccine over white octogenarians. And it does seem like there is a racial bias in the handing out of those vaccines. And remember not too long ago when the idea of a vaccine passport was considered a conspiracy theory? And a year ago, it would have been unthinkable that any public figure would suggest that you would need to have a vaccination record with you to display before entering a shop or any public place. But that's where they are in Britain. And sooner or later, it's going to come here. We're getting into 1984. Your papers, please. Your papers, please. You must show your driver's license, your proof of insurance, your vaccination card, and all the rest of it. I remember Robert Heinlein, in one of his books, pointed out that any society that requires 3 forms of identification is on the verge of collapse. And he was definitely prescient. In fact, I think it was from the Handbook of Lazarus Long inside Time Enough for Love, which is an amazing, amazing novel. Another little story here. Actually, we've got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Have you been looking for a trusted long-term storable food company? We have a solution for you. Simply Clean Foods is dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Our line of resealable fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away valuable groceries ever again. Our food is completely GMO-free, and our stringent quality controls, plus testing for heavy metals, makes us unique in the storable foods market. Simply Clean Foods' primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. When you purchase from simplycleanfoods.net, not only will you be receiving high-quality food, but you will also be supporting veterans in need across the country and those who are affected by natural disasters. Right now, Amazon Prime members will receive fast 2-day shipping. Go to simplycleanfoods.net. That's simplycleanfoods.net. But do it today.
Is your property a financial burden and causing you grief? Have you tried to sell but can't find buyers? Or are you just too busy to sell your property? Don't worry, we have the right solution for you. We buy properties as is, with cash, close in 30 days, and pay all closing costs. Our service is ideal for property owners who are in pre-foreclosure, have high-end repair costs, experiencing financial hardship, going through costly divorces, are relocating, need cash for retirement, suffering family loss, or have tax liens. Whatever your situation may be, we can help you sell your property and get the money you need. If you own a single-family home or multiple family units, call us for a free consultation at 888-910-1037. That's 888-910-1037. Or visit our website at cashingproperty.com. That's cashingproperty.com. Sell your property fast and leave all your worries behind.
February is Heart Month. Every year for the month of February, to show our appreciation to Extendivite's faithful customers, we have a sale. If you would like to try Extendivite, now is the time to get a few months ahead and really give Extendivite the time to show you how it works. Most of Extendivite's long-term customers wait for this sale to stock up. People and doctors tell us about the unbelievable improvements that they have experienced in their overall health, not just the heart. Extendivite wants you to experience the power of these herbs. Get a 4-month supply for only $115 for either the capsules or tincture. Please take advantage of this once-per-year sale and get healthy for life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
Welcome back to our show here. We're still talking about COVID-19. And there is a supposedly, or at least formerly secret paper from the Swiss Federal Council that was leaked to the Swiss newspaper Der Blick, divulging that the federal council is considering granting owners of restaurants, theaters, and cinemas, as well as private event organizers, the right to allow access to those people only who have had their coronavirus shots. It's a form of social coercion. And it raises the possibility, are we seeing the face of dictatorship in Switzerland, where if you don't have the shot, you are prohibited from, just going on out and having a normal life. The fact that they're pushing this vaccine this hard for a disease that really isn't presenting that much of a problem is one of the reasons I'm very, very concerned about what its real purpose is, especially when you start looking at all the deaths and the adverse reactions that are being reported so far. Over in Great Britain, lawmakers there are demanding an investigation of the National Institute of Health. This is in the United States. Apparently, Congress wants to investigate the National Institute of Health secretively funneling U.S. tax dollars to the virus lab in Wuhan, China. And it had 28 congressional signers. And basically pointing out that the National Institutes of Health have played a major role in supporting the Wuhan Institute of Virology and this treacherous research and promotion of spurious claims dismissing the lab potential role in the COVID-19 pandemic. This gets back to the lab accident theory of its origin. If in fact there actually is a COVID-19 and it isn't just the normal seasonal flu. Over in Belgium, health officials are very concerned that 15 million fabric masks given to pharmacists may actually be toxic, that they were made with materials that could actually cause pneumonia. According to a preliminary report carried out by the Belgian Institute for Public Health, the masks contain nanoparticles of silver and titanium dioxide that, when inhaled, could damage the respiratory tract. The face masks were made in Asia by Luxembourg-based company Avrox. Now, for the silver, a lot of people would say, well, nano silver might actually help, but the titanium oxide, obviously somebody wanted them to look very, very white, and that was the white material that they used. Getting to the international news now, protests in Myanmar continue, along with a flurry of Southeast Asian diplomacy trying to basically resolve the situation. And Wuna Maung Lewin, Myanmar's military-appointed foreign minister, flew to Bangkok for talks on diplomatic efforts by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, according to a source in Thailand. So they're trying to get this thing put together. Meanwhile, Facebook has now banned all of the accounts of the Myanmar military so that they cannot communicate to the population of Myanmar. Obviously trying to interfere with that country's internal affairs regarding reimposition of a government that is accused of seizing power through massively fraudulent elections, kind of like what we had here. Over in Israel, Netanyahu is out there saying that Israel will prevent a nuclear Iran whether or not a deal is in place. And this comment is being interpreted to mean that Israel will attack Iran even if Biden goes forward with the nuclear deal. So they're talking tough over there. Meanwhile, over in Iran, they're basically pointing out that Israel's expansion of the Dimona nuclear site is threatening global security. Now, for those of you who are new to this issue, the reactor site in Dimona, or near Dimona in Israel, is actually a bomb factory. Was supposed to be secret, but pretty much everybody knows about it now. In fact, there was even a special documentary on Israeli TV explaining that underneath this supposed research reactor, there was a factory where nuclear weapons were being built. So it's an open secret. Everybody knows it. Satellite photos are now showing extensive, massive construction efforts at that facility. Congressman Gregory Meeks, a key Democrat, is out there trying to blame the rise of global bigotry on the Palestinians, and said that he would address the upsurge of racism and hate crimes when he talks to Palestinian leaders. Well, good luck with that one. Meeks is serving as the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He lavished praise on Israel at a Brookings Institution virtual conference yesterday and vowed to bolster America's social, economic, and political ties with Israel. Always Israel. Israel gets what they want. Over in Yemen, the Yemeni army is close to retaking the city of Marib from Saudi-led forces, and they look to be very close to victory in the battle for Yemen's strategic central province. Army troops backed by allied fighters from popular committees have reportedly taken control of most areas there and dislodged Saudi-led coalition forces and Riyadh-backed militants from those regions. Wars are continuing everywhere. In its first month in office, the Biden administration has taken a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach to Russia. They renewed a key treaty limiting the size of U.S. and Russian strategic arsenals while simultaneously accusing Moscow of trying to undermine America and to weaken the European project and the NATO alliance. So right now, General Todd Walters, commander of the U.S. European Command, has come on out calling Moscow an existential threat and says both Russia and China are engaged in nefarious activities without offering any real specifics there. But it's all part of the great power competition. We reported about a week ago on how U.S. strategic bombers, nuclear-capable bombers, have been deployed to Norway, and the reasoning is now becoming a little more obvious from this article in Global Research, where they're speculating that if there is the breakout of war between the U.S. and Russia, Norway may become a main battleground. So Colonel Tormod Heier highlighted that strengthening the U.S. military presence in Norway would have negative consequences for the Scandinavian country. According to Norwegian state-owned media NRK, in an article titled, "Can Joe Biden Become Dangerous to Norway?" Colonel Heier, a professor of the Norwegian Defense College, said Norway could turn into a battlefield if tensions broke out between the United States and Russia. So they're seriously talking about World War III here. Meanwhile, Twitter has announced that it has suspended dozens of accounts for undermining confidence in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was part of a broader purge of almost 400 Twitter accounts believed to have ties to Russia, Armenia, and Iran. So they're out there. The censorship is continuing. And by the way, I discovered indirectly that I am now being blocked from Facebook, which is a real waste of time because I haven't used Facebook in years. But I guess they finally got around to me. Anyway, another article. Yesterday, we talked about the Freedom and Independence class littoral combat ships, which we had previously commented on all the problems, the cost overruns, and the difficulty actually implementing the concept of modular interchangeable weapon systems. And the tacit admission, say that 3 times fast, the tacit admission that the littoral combat ships were basically failures, and just 6 years after the first one was commissioned, they are starting to decommission them. Well, now we have this other article, and this one is from Russia Today, talking about a tacit admission by the U.S. Air Force that the F-35 has failed its main mission. It cannot accomplish all that they were hoping that it was going to do. And it has triggered a great deal of outrage from Americans who think that the 1.7 trillion with a T development program could have been better spent on other things like wiping out the student loans, clean water for the homeless, homes for the homeless. I mean, 1.7 trillion is a lot of money. And Forbes magazine published a story about how the United States Air Force is now commissioning a study on a new, cheaper, and lighter fighter to replace the F-35. And Israel just went ahead and ordered a whole bunch of those. So it was a boondoggle. I mean, I think it's become a classic example of the waste that exists in the military-industrial complex. And we've been talking about the F-35 for a long time and all the problems that it had. And really, we don't get the bang for our bucks in our defense budget. And so for anybody looking at a potential World War III, the fact that the United States spends more on their military than the next 25 nations combined is not a guarantor of success. When these flawed, frail, delicate, easily broken weapons are put into actual combat. I mean, they're even saying that the latest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, has so many problems it may not actually ever be considered useful in a real combat situation. I'm sure it's going to make a great training platform someday. Getting into the economic news, Fry's Electronics is closing all of their stores. And this is going to be a tremendous shock to electronic hobbyists. And, you know, it's the terrible economy. And it's also the fact that our culture has moved away from that build-it-yourself mentality that seemed to be so prevalent back when I was young in high school. And I built my own shortwave radio and I built my own CB radio. You know, Heathkit was one of my favorite companies. Radio Shack put out kits to build stuff or discrete components, and you could, you know, make your own printed circuit boards and make things like metal detectors. And that was a lot of fun. And you learned how these things worked. And I think the bellwether in all this was watching Radio Shack, which began to move away from supporting electronic hobbyists into end user products like cell phones and MP3 players. And that's when they got into trouble. They basically walked away from their customer base. Meanwhile, Tesla is temporarily suspending production of the Model 3 at their Fremont, California factory. And it's going to be down from February 22nd until March 7th. The employees are still going to be paid for 22nd and February 23rd, but not paid for February 28th, March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Many employees were advised to use their vacation time during the downage. All right, GameStop, their stock is back in the news. They basically rocketed up to $91.71 a share on a forward price evaluation of 126. And so it's back in the news. It's doing very well. A lot of people were concerned that that whole Reddit, Robinhood, going after the hedge funds might actually destroy the company, but apparently not. It's still out there. Over in India, their parliament is discussing the possible law to ban private cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and instead launch a national Indian digital currency. Don't want private money supplies out there. It's all got to be under the control of the government. We mentioned this briefly yesterday, where the Federal Reserve payment systems used to settle transactions between U.S. financial institutions suffered a massive disruption. They're saying it was an operational error. but it froze $3 trillion in daily transactions, including paychecks, tax refunds, and bill payments. So that was a nasty one. Over at Bank of America, they're becoming bullish on gold. They are expecting gold to hit $2,000 an ounce sometime this year. So hang on to your precious metals. Don't bail on them just yet. Mortgage purchase applications have declined 12% from the previous week and 7% from the same week 1 year ago. Real estate is starting to slow down there. Story that came on out of global research talking about social, meaning wealth inequalities in the U.S. and how the United States is failing its most vulnerable. And it's talking about how, the number of unemployed workers has soared between February and May of last year, soared more than threefold to 20.5 million. And of course, at the same time, our government is now opening up the border for more and more immigrants to pour on in. So the billionaires are doing really, really good. Ordinary Americans, not so much. Story coming on out of Investment Watch blog, meat prices are rising as food inflation worsens. This is pushing many Americans to a tipping point of food shortages. Now, when inflation finally becomes visible, the first place you see it is fuel and food costs. There's been a huge reckless overprinting, overcreation of U.S. dollars over the last year. And they were using the rising real estate prices as a corresponding cash sink to avoid the inflationary pressures from hitting our economy. But that is not working any longer. Okay, we're going to take a break for some commercials, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and a new app, Koshertified, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out the kosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Koshertified app can make a huge difference for your future.
Hey there, are you going to wait till the cows come home to get your new ease-off drop-in lift?
What in the world is an ease-off drop-in lift?
Our ease-off is a new tool to increase production for your meat processing company that will get that whole hog or half a beef on or off your rail with our remote control.
That sounds great, but can I afford it?
Sure! And the Ease Off installs fast. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue, speed up your line, and increase profits.
Okay, I'm convinced. Where can I get my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com. That's EAZEOFF.com. And hurry because we're offering free shipping for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too.
Ease Off LLC, 417-932-6419.
Politicians and preachers once sometimes told the truth. We didn't throw war's first stone and sacrifice our finest youth. With no video games or cell phones, a house felt like a home. Children fought and played together instead of on a computer alone. Big MacDonald had a farm, then he opened a burger joint.
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the economic news. And apparently, billionaire Ackman is buying insurance against disaster as an inflation event risk fears build. In other words, the top money people are out there trying to hedge the possibility of a major correction in the near future. We've all seen the signs coming. All right, Democrats are going to accept just 2 of the 286 amendments sought by Republicans for the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 stimulus bill. And as we pointed out yesterday, much of this $1.9 trillion has nothing to do with COVID-19 or with the hardships the American people have suffered because of the declining economy. Republicans offered 286 amendments to the bill. Democrats accepted just 2 of them. And it's a pork barrel bill is really what it is. Right now, Joe Biden down at our border is illegally holding unaccompanied migrant children. This is coming from the Border Patrol Union. And of course, the corporate media is very silent. Back when it was Trump that was holding the unaccompanied migrant children, the media were all over it. It's terrible. It's a horrible thing to do. Now that it's a Democrat doing it, the media is, it's kind of okay here. And we're just going to go along with it. Not everybody on the Democratic side, though, is perfectly happy with this. The Squad, the group of radical left House members, are bashing the Biden administration for reestablishing a child migrant facility this week. Now, the buildings are located in Carrizo Springs, Texas. They reopened on Monday as dozens of teenagers boarded vans to go there. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is out there in social media saying this is not okay, never has been okay, never will be okay. So Biden is starting to lose his support. These next stories, I think, are very indicative of what is going wrong with our country. The first story is from uns.com, and it says the LGBT recruitment drive is succeeding wildly. And they're pointing out it's not mature adults finally coming out of the closet. The surge in people identifying as LGBT is mostly very, very young people who are being propagandized that this is all okay in their schools. And another article, this is from the Washington Examiner, is saying that the youngest generation of adults, Generation Z, 1 in 6, identify as LGBT. All right, we got to take a break for station identification, and we will be right back.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonant to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through HealthyWorldStore.com.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome back to our show, hour number 2, and we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252, but we are adding a new rule to that. We don't have a lot of rules, but we have a few of them, and the one we're adding today is callers are not allowed to criticize other callers, and one of our listeners actually very generously sent me this little bell, and if you start criticizing another caller, I'm just going to ding you. And hopefully you will get the message there that you're not supposed to do that. We intend to be polite. Everybody has a right to their opinion. That's the whole idea behind the First Amendment. And I will let callers make comments that I may not agree with, but they do have a right to put those opinions out there, and you are free to call on in and challenge those opinions, but not to personally insult the other callers, okay? And if you engage in that kind of behavior, we are definitely going to drop you. So let's start with Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Haven't talked to you in a while, but listen, this whole thing is really starting to feel like a major police state. It's been a year now. You can't go anyplace. I mean, I love traveling to Italy and Spain, and you know, you can't go anyplace. And I'm curious, why are people still supporting the military and the police? The police and the military both helped the globalists and Biden cheat in the election and protected them all. Yet all these people, even people that call on your show, and of course I'm not going to name anybody because I don't even know who they are, but I've heard them. It's almost like it's ingrained in them to support the police and support the military. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, and I don't support the military at all. I don't support them at all. We don't need the military. When Russia conquered or tried to conquer Afghanistan, they realize there's no way you can win these wars of occupation. So there's nobody stupid enough to try and occupy the United States. We don't need the military like we do now. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yet all these people blindly support the military, and they helped Biden steal. They helped Obama and the globalists and Biden steal that election.
I don't know that many of the military were involved in that fraud. I know certainly the corporate media was, the electronic voting machines were, and a bunch of corrupt state officials, but I'm not aware that the military played any kind of a significant role in the election fraud.
Well, sure they did. They put chicken wire and they're protecting them right now. And they have the military intelligence who probably knows more than any intelligence network, the CIA, the DIA, any of them. So they know that those votes were switched and everything, and yet it's not so much for the privates and the PFCs and the staff sergeants. I'm talking about the military leadership. It's okay. I mean, they're complicit in this thing, Mike. It's ridiculous. And the cops, too. Look, the cops are protecting Antifa. I mean,
we definitely saw that. Yes. Well, I mean, we saw cops escorting the protesters into the Capitol building on the 6th.
Of course. Well, so why do people keep supporting them?
Well, I don't know. What do you think?
I think even all these people that talk about being red-pilled, they're not red-pilled. They're all brainwashed. They came out of the womb, their mother and their grandfather before them, have told them to support the police. They don't even know why they're supporting the police. The police suck. They're oppressive as hell. And like I said, you all you have to do is watch. They protected They were in with Antifa. They've been along. And even in Portland, they protect them. I used to live there. It's ridiculous, and they make the Trump supporters out to be bad guys. I mean, I don't support the police at all. I hope they get clipped, and I don't support the military leadership at all. I think it's all corrupt. It's all corrupt, Mike. It's not just the politicians. They're all corrupt. I don't know. I pray to God every night that something will change and happen. But man, Mike, this is the worst.
It does seem like God is on the other side in this one.
It doesn't seem like to me like God's helping us out at all. It just seems to me like I don't know. I don't know what's gonna take, but I've never seen it in 53 years, and I know you're older than me. I've never seen it anywhere near this bad, Mike.
No, I haven't either. No,
yeah,
it's a very, very dark time for our country.
You mentioned that vaccine. I mean, my God, man, you are right. There's something in that vaccine. They're putting a lot of pressure on. I get notices and email from the VA almost every day about coming down to take that vaccine. I will never take it. Even if I can never travel again to Italy or Spain, I'm never going to take that vaccine. They can stick that vaccine where the sun don't shine.
Okay, well, I certainly agree with you on that one. I'm not going to take that mRNA vaccine. I'm waiting for the Johnson & Johnson one to come out, and then even then I may say no. I'd be much happier if Russia's Sputnik 5 vaccine was available in this country, but of course it's not. Anyway, Steve, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Dave in Maryland. Hello, Dave. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
It's good to hear you, man. These past couple of weeks, man, the callers is acting kind of nutty, right?
Yeah, I may change the format of the show to try and rein things in a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, just something to respond to the last caller. He made a good point about the cops that were involved with Antifa and all that. But you got to go a little step further. The cops and the feds were involved with the Proud Boys as well and the Oath Keepers. Everybody there on each side, it was a Fed operation from top to bottom. You know, they were all Fed informants, so you can't just pick a side, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I wanted to call in about Bill Gates. Remember a little while back, I don't know if you covered it, Bill Gates is out there talking about how he's going to spray the sky to dim the sun.
Yeah, I remember he was talking about that.
The stratospheric aerosol injection, right? The chemtrails?
Yes.
Yeah, so like basically all this stuff that they've been calling everybody kooks for all these years, they're going to come out and admit it now and be like, well, it's good for the planet, right?
Well, anytime they come out with anything, you know, they're going to say it's good for the people, it's good for the planet, you know, it's good for the country as a whole. But it's just, you know, somebody else making more money off of people's gullibility.
Yeah, but for all those years, they were calling us crazy conspiracy theorists about, you know, the streaks in the sky. And now Bill Gates is out there like he's going to admit it, and they're going to tell you exactly that they've been doing it, you know, spraying aluminum, barium,
Bill
salt, all that
Gates
stuff in the
doesn't
sky.
call it chemtrails. You know, he's calling it something else. And, obviously, if he's talking about dimming the sun, those thin little trails, which I think are contrails rather than chemtrails, really wouldn't do it. He's talking about literally blanketing the entire atmosphere with reflective particles, which if you follow the whole Matrix franchise, that's what the human race tried to do to stop the machines, which is when the machines turned them all into batteries.
Yeah, I mean, the Matrix and all that stuff, but the chemtrails was the crazy conspiracy theory that they try to label it to make everybody look crazy. The labels have been out there for years, the patents. It's called stratospheric aerosol injection. John Brennan talked about it at the CFR and geoengineering, global dimming. The chemtrails aspect was all a big scam. Like they try to get people to trick, so you'd be like, oh, you're one of those crazy conspiracy kooks. You believe in chemtrails and blah, 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 and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I just think it's funny because you're going to see, watch, coming up here soon, that watch, they're going to start mainlining it. Just like all the other crazy kook conspiracy theories that came out through the years. Then they bring it out and they normalize it on TV, and everybody's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, cool. So I just, wanted to add that to there. And then one other question before I let you go. I know you probably got a lot of callers and stuff. You're Jewish, right, Mike? Like you're Sephardic?
What? By ancestry, yes. Religiously, I'm not religious.
So you're Jewish by blood, not by religion.
Yeah, but it's from my father's line of the family, going back to Shanghai.
Oh, that's cool. Because I remember you always talked about how your family was on like the what do they call it? The Underground Railroad for the slavery and all that stuff.
That was on my mother's side. That was my mother's side of the family. Yeah.
Oh. Because you know that it was all the Jews that ran the slave train and owned the ships, right, Mike?
Yeah, I know they owned the ships, and they basically bought the African slaves from other Africans, and that was the way that got going.
Yeah, they would close the auction houses down on the Sabbath day, Saturday, and all that stuff. And Jews aren't white. You know that, right, Mike?
Well, they're certainly today saying they're not white because they don't want to get caught up in this anti-white hysteria that's sweeping the country.
Well, no, they claim that they're white when they want to push different agendas. But then at the end of the day, if you ask them, they're like, oh, I'm not white. When they want to talk about their privilege and all this stuff, they say, oh, I'm white. I have white privilege. But in reality, they're Jewish. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I was just saying because you said earlier that you were white, and if you're saying you're Jewish now, I don't know.
Well, the Jewish part is a very, very tiny part. I mean, I haven't done the 23andMe DNA check, so I don't know what the percentage is. But my bloodlines include French, English, the Sephardic, and some Chinese as well. So I'm basically a mutt, Heinz 57 variety.
Yeah. That's cool. I appreciate it, Mike. All right, well, like I said, I'll let you go. And then, like I said, I figured I'd just come in and break down because I'm not going to say anybody's names, but, you made a good point the other day about talking about how, immigration and stuff like that. Somebody keeps repeating crime rate in Chicago, crime rate in Chicago, crime rate in Chicago. Yeah. But you know who's all behind the immigration, the mass immigration, all that stuff?
Well, yeah, I noticed that the only country that doesn't have the open borders is Israel.
I know, right? And they're not going to allow that. But all right, I'll let you go. Okay. All right, Mike. I'll see you later. All right.
Okay. Thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Cody in Illinois. Hello, Cody. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. Good afternoon, Mike. It's interesting, as smart as the Jews claim to be, that they're doing some kind of forced vaccination over there. I was kind of surprised by that, considering all these stories that look like it kills 33% of people in different nursing homes. There was a story, LifeSite News had it. It didn't have all the figures, but it had 13 people killed out of 40.
Yeah, they've had a lot of adverse reactions over there. Definitely.
Yeah, but.
Well, it's actually a good thing they're trying to withhold the vaccines from the Palestinians.
Right, absolutely. Unless it's some kind of a biological weapon that is keyed in on certain genetics, and maybe it doesn't hurt them. Who knows? But if you're looking at change of the format, I was going to mention, some of these people that call in and get so emotional, they ought to, take a step back and realize that, some of these liberals might be listening, and it just gives more conservative people kind of a bad name when people get too bent out of shape. They could use it against us, so people might want to think about that and try to, when they call in. And Layla was all worried about race mixing the other day. Well, if you guys are all worried about that, just tell your kids, they'll be left out of the will if you're so concerned about that, rather than trying to push your views on everybody else. But the reason I called in is Michael Savage had I think last Thursday, he's a PhD in some different kinds of, I guess, herbs and stuff, biology of some sort. Well, anyway, he was talking about marijuana and just all the side effects that people don't realize. It was kind of scary. I would urge everybody to go listen to all the side effects of marijuana and how, we've been brainwashed, just like everything else. We're being brainwashed for the, into this marijuana acceptance.
Well, the fact is that, marijuana was demonized. And I'm old enough to remember, being shown reefer madness in school. But marijuana was being demonized primarily because anybody could grow it and use it and not have to pay taxes on it. And what they wanted was for people to get back to drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, tobacco, which were controlled and taxed.
Well, he cited a lot of studies, and it's good to follow up there if you want to check out his podcast, because he cited a lot of studies. I mean, there was just a whole list of, memory and all sorts of things that it affected long term, and I think it was worse on the lungs than tobacco. Just a whole litany of different issues, and it's just it's being glossed over now because the governments are starting to tax it, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But another thing I was going to mention is, Facebook, Twitter, all that. Maybe it should be illegal for these, public officials to use these private social networks. Maybe the government should have to have their own. It just seems like, why should, government officials be supporting ads and such on Facebook and Twitter and all that? And then we're having all this issue with censorship of different,
Yeah, but even if politicians went onto their own network, you're still going to have the problem of Twitter and Facebook and Google censoring ordinary American citizens, and that is by far the larger problem.
Right. Yeah, it's really sad that we can't trust our politicians to hurry up and pass a law to fix this. I mean, there was that old court case where a mining company, I guess, actually literally owned the town square, and the Supreme Court at the time ruled that, they could not kick people out from pamphleting and doing what they were doing, because that was, that town square was provided for a public purpose.
Yes.
That's how these social media, so I don't know if they're ever going to win. People are challenging all this, but it's pretty sad that they, our politicians don't care. It's pretty obvious. So anyway, thanks a lot, Mike. Keep up the good work there.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. And we're going to switch over to Henry in Connecticut. Hello, Henry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi. Yeah, hi, Mike. I haven't called ever, actually. I listen to your show all the time. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One is the thing with immigration, because you had a couple of callers there, including, what's her name, Laura or whatever, from where she was, Canada, somewhere.
Layla in Canada, yes.
Gentleman, Layla, okay. Yeah, hi, Layla, if you're out there. Okay, and the guy, Tom, from down in Florida.
Yeah.
Right. And the other gentleman saying, well, he says the same thing with the Chicago. No, not always, because, see, I've listened to whenever he calls. Actually, sometimes I listen to your show and your news, and then I will wait to see what Tom would respond to, because usually he'd talk about whatever you talk about within the news for that day. I have to say something. Being up here, I'm not in the New York area. I'm in Connecticut, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
I have to say, both him and Layla, they are absolutely right. He is absolutely right. And by the way, that's amazing, Tom. If you hear me out there, I didn't know you push 300 bench press 325 pounds. That's good. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must be. Maybe he's tall like me, like 6 foot something. Yeah,
I've
that's
never
great.
met the man.
Oh no, I know. I haven't met him either. Well, let's say, from what I know, okay, but I'm still a young guy. Oh, I sound like I'm much older. I probably sound like I'm older than you, but I'm not. I have to say, he is absolutely right. Layla is too. Yeah, absolutely right. Because I can go back with the old Bob Grant show, okay? Now, regardless of what Bob Grant would say about the sterilization thing and all that, and he was talking only about people on welfare, and some people I didn't necessarily agree with it. I thought it was stupid because it's all this crap and competitiveness that's putting people on, in and out of work, welfare, and everything else. It's too competitive and too much struggle in our employment market period. For 40 years, there should not have been, at least 30 years, okay? There should not have been. But that was back in 1990. I remember you got
we got to take a break. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. I'm going to put you on hold, and we're going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Henry from Connecticut. We're talking about immigration. And, there a lot of people have different opinions on it. They look at it from different points of view. Some people are looking at it from the idea of miscegenation. I tend to look at it primarily from a point of view of the economic realities in this country right now, where we have so many legal American citizens unable to find work, and yet we're pouring in tens of thousands, millions even, of illegal immigrants who are going to be competing for the same jobs that American citizens should be getting.
Right, that you should not have. But I'll say this. I have a few points, but I'll say this. I can remember, and if Tom out there listening, hello, Tom, he'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Because he's probably older than me, and maybe not. I can remember way back in 1990 on Bob Grant's show. I taped the show even. And I'm telling you, they never wanted that kind of immigration. And let me say this. It's not just the illegal. There is an agenda with the legal, because since, like with a guy who used to call up Bob Grant, his name is Neil, but I won't get into him. He was telling Bob, that since 1965 and that Immigration Reform Act, only 20% can come from Central and Northern Europe, and from Europe, period. 80% had to come from not just Latin America, but Jamaica, the third world. And I'm telling you, that's true. And it's not just, it is an economic thing, but my beef is also the cultural and the ethnic, because it's a deliberate agenda. There is a book out there. See, I used to think some of that stuff is not hogwash, but maybe a little bit like far out there, right?
Yeah.
And you would hear people like this one and that one, even David Duke. I mean, I know what he was in that terrorist thing, but that was like many, many years ago. That was 35 years ago. I'm talking about later on when he was like just ran for representative. He would say things, this one would say things. And there is an agenda, because there's a book called Tragedy and Hope by Quisley, and he's got that in there. And I was going to buy that book and read the whole thing. I had somebody else who told me about it, read it. And the thing is, the legal immigration, which is predominantly non-white European also. See, because the radio shows, I don't know about Rush Limbaugh, but all of them even back then, I used to listen to a couple of them, not as much Rush, more Bob and the others. And I would watch TV, but I wasn't much into TV. And I'd read and other stuff. And they would, I remember back then, it was always, there was this agenda to have around all this crap around, diversity. And you hear these, and they would put it in the radio. It's called auto-suggestion. It's an occult technique when you repeat something.
Yes.
They would have it in the radio that, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we have people assimilating this country, right, culturally, and or in our schools or anything, just as long as they come here to work, and they work for less or work more. Our job market, and these politicians, especially the Democrats, but the Republicans too, we got to get that straight. And it's mostly the baby boomer generation pushing this. Our employment market industry, period, is not up for grabs for all this third world people come here, even legally, to work for less or work for cheap and whatever. That stuff is destroying. And the other thing is that, what's her name, the woman, Layla, she's made some point on some calls she've had. There is an agenda. I used to think it was kind of, far out, but it isn't. There is she's right. There really is. There's some guy out there named Calgary or something. There is an organization in the UN that gave a medal to Angela Merkel. She's a real B. I can't stand her. A lot of ones in Germany can't stand her. And I'm German extraction, German. And she got a medal, or got not a medal, but an award, the Calgary, whatever the guy's name is. He's dead, but there's an award in his name, like the Cisco Rhodes thing in Oxford, with that Rhodes Scholarship thing, similar to that, but it's not a scholarship. And Angela Merkel and the guy in France at that time, I think it was Sarkozy, got this award, and it dealt with multiculturally, trying to multiculturalize Germany. By the way, it's incidentally, she said herself in German, and also Helmut Kohl did too, because I remember reading in the New Yorker Stadtzeitung on the Herald, which was a German-American newspaper that had English and German in it, that multiculturalism in Germany is a failure. And it says even to this day, the Turks don't really want to be fully part of German society. That's going on right now. And that's the Turks. And I'm talking about the other Muslims.
That was predictable. That was predictable. I know that the globalists had this idea that they were going to flood the people from different countries into every other country, and we were all going to hold hands in a circle and sing Kumbaya. But if you look back...
It's not every country, because they're not doing it in Japan.
Okay, Henry, I got to put you on hold again.
Yeah, I'll go another
all right,
show. Okay.
And I'll be right back.
Great show.
All right, thank you.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Is your property a financial burden and causing you grief? Have you tried to sell but can't find buyers? Or are you just too busy to sell your property? Don't worry, we have the right solution for you. We buy properties as is, with cash, close in 30 days, and pay all closing costs. Our service is ideal for property owners who are in pre-foreclosure, have high-end repair costs, experiencing financial hardship, going through costly divorces, are relocating, need cash for retirement, suffering family loss, or have tax liens. Whatever your situation may be, we can help you sell your property and get the money you need. If you own a single-family home or multiple family units, call us for a free consultation at 888-910-1037. That's 888-910-1037. Or visit our website at cashingproperty.com. That's cashingproperty.com. Sell your property fast and leave all your worries behind.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy.
And I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas. Yeah, I want to be a pirate.
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Henry from Connecticut. We're talking about immigration. And I started to make the point that all of this turmoil that has resulted from the open borders was predictable. Now, the globalists, liberal idealists, again, it's another example of an idea that sounds really, really good, but was not thought all the way through. Because if you look back at the first great immigration into the United States of America, Statue of Liberty, and Ellis Island and all of that, those people came to this country, and there was economic opportunity, but they didn't really blend in with the American culture. They immediately segregated. You had Chinatown, you had Japantown, you had Little Italy, you had Greektown, and they basically formed their own little communities within the larger community. Now, it was more or less peaceful. Not always, of course, but this idea that you were just going to throw all of these different mixed cultures together into one set of borders and have them getting along peacefully, that was never going to work. And, unfortunately, the globalists are still pushing that idea. And it's one of the reasons why Biden has reopened our border to try and flood our country with people from, all over the hemisphere in the hope that we're going to love them. Okay, hello? Hello? Henry, are you there?
No, Henry dropped.
Henry dropped. Okay, all right. So we're going to go to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, real quickly, Mike. Good day to you. I just want to say to Layla for being very gracious. Thank you for when you call back yesterday for being gracious. And I appreciate that for being gracious on. She was very gracious on her calling back.
Yes.
Her second call yesterday. So I thank her for that. And she brought out her point, which I guess she was really wanting to say. So that was nice. So,
okay.
I appreciate her graciousness. Now, as far as that guy Henry, I hope he calls in more. We need guys like him. We need Marco. I hope this guy Henry calls in all the time because he sounds like a really informative guy and knows what he needs to talk about. So thank you for calling in, Henry. Now, Mike, what I want to talk about. Look, let's talk about UFOs and all that now, Mike, because I think that's a good. Let's talk about coast to coast for a while.
Yeah,
coast,
well,
like
it's not exactly
my audience. The Kingdom of Nye.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Kingdom of Nye, but yeah, Mike, I do think it's kind of fascinating that now things are coming out, and especially in the last 5 years about UFOs. And what I saw something very fascinating on Ancient Aliens with who was the guy, Jesse, the guy that was in New Mexico when he found all the metal.
Yeah, there was Project
Jesse,
Project Orion, I think was the name of it. And it was actually a high altitude balloon that carried sensors to detect the signature of Russian nuclear tests. And that's why when it crashed, the first thing they thought is, oh, we can't admit what we were doing. The Russians will get upset. So just say it's a flying saucer. And then, of course, that triggered a huge public interest. And they had to come on back and say, no, it wasn't a flying saucer. It was an ordinary weather balloon. And it just went from there. But as I pointed out yesterday, you will notice that every time the United States is working on a black project aircraft, Hollywood comes out with a lot of movies about flying saucers and space aliens in order that anybody who sees something they shouldn't see up in the sky will start running around in circles saying, I saw a UFO, I saw a flying saucer, the space aliens are coming, and nobody will really pay much attention to them. Now, I am absolutely convinced that there's intelligent life throughout the entire universe. I just really don't see a reason why they would want to bother with us. We don't have anything that they really need. And, the costs of coming here are going to be immense. I think the first evidence we'll have of extraterrestrial civilizations will, in fact, be intercepting radio broadcasts or TV broadcasts as our radio telescopes get larger and larger. And I know that new fast scope they have over in China is actually going to be doing a little searching along those lines.
Well, yeah, that's good. Yeah, Mike. That's a good point. And I think if these aliens did land on Earth, I think they would be considered legal aliens because they may have been here before all of us. So maybe they're the real legal aliens to be here. But
no, if they land on Earth without permission, technically they're illegal aliens.
Well, according to the ancient alien theorists, Mike, they've been here thousands of years before we were here. They made us, mostly the genetics. I don't know.
Well, that's out of 2001. Anyway, seriously, Tom. Let's talk about Tom. Okay, let's talk about some of the events in the news today. I mean, the election fraud. That's an important topic. Apparently, the House of Representatives has passed that bill granting added legal protections to the LGBTQ, BFD, LSMFT community. And they've become our new special protected group.
Yes. Well, Mike, I just got to go back to something Paul said. Paul made an excellent call yesterday. I must say that. And I'm going to give Paul some accolades for what he said. Paul said something that all the listeners need to hear. I hope he calls in today, Paul, and accept what he said. Paul was mentioning yesterday in his call that every ethnic group is trying to better themselves, but it's not benefiting us to worry about what other ethnic groups. If you're in the white Northern European Caucasian class, you want to make your people better. And Paul was right how he worded it. I'm a little scattering right now, I know, but Paul was right. We should be worrying about our agenda, our betterment of our country. Like Michael, I'll give you an example. My grandfather.
I absolutely
agree. My grandfather
agree.
fought in World. Thank you. My grandfather fought in World War I. My great-great-grandfather fought. My great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War. Great-grandfather. My dad's father, fought in World War I. My father's a Korean War. My uncle was in World War II, and I had two brothers in Vietnam. My point is this: the people who went to war for this country, the Northern European, Caucasian, whatever you want to, the white Northern, the Nordics, whatever you want to call us, we should get the benefit of better health care, better job, first creation of jobs. We should get those. Our people are the ones that fought these wars mainly. Not saying they're all white, but 90% of the men who went to war for this country and all these foreign wars in the Civil War were white men, Mike, and we should be reaping the benefits. Okay? If you want to go back into my genealogy or my family tree, my family's been here for almost 180 some years. Genealogy, yes, thank you. Okay. My point is this, Mike. We should be getting the better benefits than before anybody. For anybody who comes to this country, Paul made the case right there yesterday. We need to worry about look, when you go into NASCAR, the team that's on the NASCAR team wants to win the race for their driver. They do everything and anything to get that guy over the finish line first. That's how we got to look at this, Mike. It's about winning the race. The race in our civilization, our cultural identity, our getting over the finish line first. Look, we got to the moon before the Chinese because we had Northern Europeans and even guys that everybody thought were bad guys. They were a lot of them were they were from Germany.
We got to the moon, but the Russians were close behind us, and for a while they were ahead of us in space. And and you're right, there were a lot of Northern European white people involved in their space program. I mean, they got their share of the German rocket scientists. And what's his name? Korolev was their version of Werner von Braun. Unfortunately, he died when he was watching a launch from too close, and it blew up.
Well, Mike, I just got to say this about the Russians, though. The Russians are Caucasians. They're white. You want to pick a fight with your own people? The Russians in Russia are whiter than we are. I mean, come on, they're Caucasians. They come from the Ural Mountains. So why would we want to pick a bone with them? I mean, the Germans, the Nazis, the Russians, they're the main people in the Russian. That one caller made a great call today. They basically kicked the Bolsheviks out after 60 years of people in Russia got fed up with the Bolshevik communists, and they kicked them all out, and they took over their country back. It took a while, but they did.
Yeah,
they're
it's going to take a
Caucasians.
while here
They're
as well.
Caucasians.
Okay. All right. Well, listen,
Exactly.
Tom, we're getting short on time, and I got a bunch of other callers waiting here. So thank you very much for the call. We're going to let you go. We do have
Play
some
some Eric Clapton, Layla.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. We still have some phone lines open. Area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I'm going to tie a couple of threads here together, but I want to start out by saying a friend pointed out to me this morning that Ben Shapiro, who is has been put forth by the powers that be in the media. Everybody else is being banned on the conservative side except for three guesses, Ben Shapiro. And it looks like they're angling to put him in to replace Rush Limbaugh, who, of course, Ben Shapiro was an unrepentant Jewish supremacist and Israeli firster. And they'll want to have him or somebody like him to take over the audience and be basically the intellectual voice or conscience of the conservative party, the way that Limbaugh, to an extent, was.
Yes.
But watch and see the installation of Ben Shapiro. Watch that. The other thing it was kind of germane to what they were talking about with immigration and so on. You ever listen to Dan Carlin's hit, histories, Mike? Guy named Dan Carlin. I want to write that name down. You like him. And I don't always agree with the guy, but he makes me think. He has histories of the First and Second World War and Romans, and it's worth listening to. I'll send you one. Take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
But Dan Carlin, there was one this morning, and I'm into military history. I know to an extent you are too. He had one comparing, since he's done histories of World War I and World War II. And a lot of his listeners have said, we want you to do a comparison on which was better, the German army of the First World War or the German military, or the German military of the Second World War. And he compared it. And one of the things, I generally agree with him, that he came out in favor of a better military, a higher performing military, was the First World War German army. And the reason why, and I agree with this also, was if you take the Nazis out of the German high command and the ideology out of German foreign policy and everything else, and the way that they promoted people and placed people in position based on ideology, not on merit, which is what I'm getting to. Yes. And then you have them sitting on the jets for 2 years, back and forth decisions, all the litany of things that they did wrong. Yes. And it's correct. And the point I want to make, going a long way around, is that that's what we're doing here. Everything is based on ideology now. Where the congressman was saying, Proud Boys bad. Who else they say was bad? Proud Boys, and who else?
Oath Keepers.
Oath Keepers, all bad. Antifa, however, the guys that actually burned down the cities in BLM, did billions and billions worth of damage, they're not bad. Nobody's declared them terrorists. Nobody's proposing that, not on the Democratic side. And so now we have ideologues, and we have people being appointed for diversity's sake, which is an ideology in its own right.
Yes.
I'm for diversity if you can get there through meritocracy. I don't care where you're from, and our immigration policy should be like one of those snooty bars, Mike, that were in LA. I know when you were around in the '80s, you go to Beverly Hills, you wait in line, and the best looking girls get in. The guys who can have enough money to tip the bouncer, $100 or something, only the select people got in, right? Yes. And the people we should be selecting is not based on race; it's based on what they can do for us. I agree. High intelligence, engineers, doctors, nurses, people like software people, that kind of person should be getting in. And I'll make an exception for somebody who's got a suitcase full of money, but then they have to agree to learning the language and buying into the greater culture, which of course they're tearing down everything. But But at any rate, all this is related with the immigration, the letting people in, the cancelization, the cancel culture, the demise of meritocracy, the rise of ideology rather than ability, and the great replacement.
Just like the former Soviet Union. Just like the former Soviet Union. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And the point that Tom made, which was my last thing I'm going to say, is that the achievements of this country, the great achievements that this country did, great affluence, winning coming in at World War II, when we came in 41, when it was like we were coming in at halftime of a football game. We were behind 40-0, and we ended up running away 80-40, right? Winning the World War II, going to the moon. That was done with a 90% basically ethnically homogenous population. That was done with when we were a nation rather than just a state. We're no longer a nation, and we were a meritocracy back then. This was, of course, the moon landing predates affirmative action, and those are so our greatest achievements are behind us, and if we don't reform, and that's. Love to hear what you had to say on that, Mike, but I'll get on.
I'm in agreement. I'm a firm believer in meritocracy. I don't think ideology should even be a factor in terms of, job placement or advancement. You want the best people for the job. If I'm lying on that operating table, I don't want the guy holding the scalpel to have been given that position because he fit into one of these protected groups, like he's, the right skin color, or he's LGBTQ, and he may have been on the verge of being thrown out of medical school. But for his protected status, and I want the top qualified person flying that plane I'm riding on. And that's what meritocracy is. And certainly, I think Washington, D.C. right now shows what happens when ideology supersedes meritocracy, and you get people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the former bartender, who is now a member of the House of Representatives. Okay? Right. All right, well, listen, Peter. Absolutely. Peter, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with another phone call and the last segment of our program after these few words.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
February is Heart Month. Every year for the month of February, to show our appreciation to Extendivite's faithful customers, we have a sale. If you would like to try Extendivite, now is the time to get a few months ahead and really give Extendivite the time to show you how it works. Most of Extendivite's long-term customers wait for this sale to stock up. People and doctors tell us about the unbelievable improvements that they have experienced in their overall health, not just the heart. Extendivite wants you to experience the power of these herbs. Get a 4-month supply for only $115 for either the capsules or tincture. Please take advantage of this once-per-year sale and get healthy for life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life.
with Extendovite.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry because we are offering $200 off on the new Easy 4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows too. Ease Off LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Wall Street wizards on the land from a mental institution claim private retirement funds. Yeah, they are the best solution. But when the markets crash, we'll be asking where's the cash? Guess them folks in D.C. must be smoking Texas hash. Will Congress pay the piper when all the money's gone? Replace them all.
Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today, and we're going to go to Kevin in West Virginia. Hello, Kevin. What's on your mind today?
Hello, sir. I had a couple of things on my mind. I had heard a couple days ago, Mr. Tom from Florida was wondering where I've been at. Well, I met a girl, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay,
and I
congratulations.
wanted to call in and talk to you about yeah. I wanted to call in and talk to you about these nuclear codes. I've been hearing about how Pelosi wants Joe Biden to turn over the nuclear codes to her and to the Democrat Party. My first question is that's never, ever been done in this country before, ever since we've had the nuclear football. And number two, I see Pelosi pulling a power grab and setting herself up to becoming, president. And I'm really surprised that they're trying to pull the 25th Amendment on Biden now or setting it up now. I would have thought they would have waited a little bit of time. But I'm also seeing something else here with these nuclear codes. I see something that a lot of people aren't talking about. Whenever they go to do this, whenever they go to like, hey, we're going to vote to give the nuclear codes to Pelosi or the Democratic Party, that would be a perfect time for somebody to first strike us because we have no response to it. I mean, you can go back
very,
to
very, very good point. That's a very good point. The reason the president was given the nuclear football is so that in the event we are attacked, he and one other member of National Command Authority could launch an immediate retaliatory strike. If that was removed to a Democratic committee, well, you know how long it takes those committees to come to. They can't even agree on what time to have their coffee. Now, in terms of maybe revoking the president's authority to conduct a nuclear first strike himself and put that back into Congress, that might not be a really bad idea, given that Congress is supposed to be the body that declares war anyway.
No, I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. But I want to ask you about MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction. That was a really good deterrent. Why can't we go back to that? I mean, because I really do see, them pulling some type of shenanigans like this, and we do absorb a first strike. We do have a lot of enemies out there. China doesn't like us. I don't know about Russia. I wish we could just get along and have détente there. But
well, I wish we could get along and have détente with everybody. But, the other thing that we have to consider, there are so many people who want to get a war going with Russia or China or Iran that a United States nuclear weapon could be set off somewhere inside this country in order to kick off World War III for real. And Pelosi and the Democrats want to be able to choose who gets the retaliatory strike.
Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. The other thing, too, with PDD, I don't know if it's 60, 61, or 62, whatever one that Bill Clinton put in where the United States absorbs a first strike, takes a first strike. Yeah. Doesn't this all of this takes us out of the ball game. All of this takes us out of. We can't play if we take a first strike.
Okay, well, Kevin, I got to let you go. We're at the end of the show. I'm sorry. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller's show. Apparently, Ralph Winterroad is doing hour number 1. Steve Elkins is doing hour number 2. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting Network. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We've got a huge electric bill to go and to pay this month, and we'll be back tomorrow.